Alright, we're back. So welcome back to another video where we're going to be building on the mini photo editor in NativePHP. This we'll probably have another 1 or 2 more live streams on top of this one, but I think it's a fun project to work on, and we get to check out how NativePHP works a bit and just try some fun projects really. So do let me know, by the way, in the comments if you enjoy having live streams on, and if you would want to see me live stream more regularly and more weekly, on a weekly basis maybe, or if you would rather not. But enough talking, let's get into the coding. So now that we are back on this, let's go ahead and look at this encode and save images, but we also need to look at this process image action as well. So to start out with, let's head in here to our process image action. In this class, we have this final read only class here, and I think we should start out with having a constructor. So in this constructor, I want to have a private one here for our encode image action. So let's actually go ahead and just quickly make a class here, so we can just go ahead and let's get the namespace from here. In here we will just call this /images, and we will have a class in here which is going to be encode and save images. So if we head into this class, we don't really need to do anything in here now. We will make this a final read-only class though, and then we'll head back into our process images. And then inside our process images, we will essentially call this now. So we have a private encode and save image action, which is going to have the save function here. And what we want to do in here is essentially nothing. We just want to instantiate this here. So now that's done, we can essentially call this in here. Inside a handle, we need multiple things. So inside our handle, first and foremost, we need to have our uploaded file as a file. We need an image options, which is going to be an array, and we are gonna have, let's go ahead and see as well, import this up here. So in here we want to have use app actions images encode and save images, and we're gonna have a use uploaded file like that. So now we have that one. We are also, in terms of image options, that's gonna be an array here. So let's take a look at that. So in here, let's go ahead and create another one. I'm gonna call this image options. And inside here, we're just gonna create this final read only. We're gonna import that now. So that will be up here. And then in here we're gonna have an output, and we're gonna have that as is array options, and that's gonna be a new image options in here. And if we don't want to create an image options, it's just going to be options here. So as you can see in here, we will have options and image options in here, where we will pass in through a bunch of values. But now we want to essentially go ahead and look at what this image options class should be. So we will have a constructor in here, public string format, and by default we will assume is WebP. You're gonna have a public int quality. By default we'll set that to 80. Public string resize mode, that's gonna be none. And we're also gonna have a public int width, height, public bool keep aspect, public int rotate equals 0, and public bool grayscale, and the blur. And that's it. So we're just passing all of these through into a constructor, and then what that ends up with having now is essentially gonna be something along these lines is what we're gonna pass through. So we're gonna have format, by default WebP, quality, resize mode, width, height, keep aspect, grayscale, blur. We pass all these options through in here. And that's basically what we do in here. So that will now allow us to go further with this. So once that's done, let's go ahead and say image equals this decode, and in this case decode will be something we can call. So we're just gonna say this, we want to decode it basically, and then we want to handle the file. But the thing is, inside our image options, so inside our encode and save images, we want to have a fair few functions in here. So that's going to be a longer class to work on. So we're going to have a handle in here. It's going to return an array. And then here we're going to have an image. We're going to have a string original file name. We're going to have image options. So the image class in here is going to be an intervention image. And our original file name we have, and then we're going to go ahead and have a format equals to this. And we want to essentially normalize this extension. So we're going to create a function in here called normalize extension options format. So if we go ahead in here now and say public, oh sorry, not actually private function, we're going to have normalize extension, and we're going to use match here. Going to be str to lower format. And then we're going to go ahead and have an encoder. We're going to make an encoder format and pass quality in as well. So the encoder is essentially just going to look something like this. We're going to import a bunch of files in here. And all of these in here will then be imported, and we can use these for the encoder. So now that we've done this encoder bit, we need to go ahead and have the encoder and then we're gonna have a disk, which in this case is gonna be storage disk and downloads. We're gonna now set the file name. So what we do is, let's call this original file name. We import all these classes here, and what we basically do now is normalize the extensions to make sure that the format is correct, encoded, assign a disk. We go ahead and have the base path, the file name, we put it in there, and then we return the information to give as well. And that's it then for this file. So if we head back in here now to our process images, we need to have a decode image action up here. So again, we're gonna create a new class. We're gonna call this decode image action to PHP. And then here we're gonna have a final read-only class. Decode image action. We're gonna have a handle, upload a file, and we're gonna return an image interface. Return image read file get path. And we just need these imported here for it to work. So if you see this, we now have the ability to, inside our process image action, inside our constructor, we're gonna have a private decode image action. I'm gonna call this decode. Okay, so now we have this image handle here. And we are now gonna go ahead and return this save, and we're going to return an array instead because we don't want to have void in this one, and that will now be what we need. So you could go ahead and extend this further and, for example, add in effects and that, but we want to handle most of the effects on the front end, not on the back end. Now, if you wanted to have like a separate thing where you wanted to have some quick effects in, maybe for your own use case, you could easily do that on the back end instead. But given this is going to be more real-time and interactive, we're going to be taking this approach instead. So with that sorted, we now need to look at our controller. So we have this image job controller. We need a bunch of functions in here, but we want to have a public function store. And in this store function, we're going to have a store image with job request. We're going to build the image option. We're going to process the image through the action, and save it, and also set notification and that. So essentially what we're going to do is we're going to process image. Actually, we're going to start out by validate image from front end, process image, and then we're going to go ahead and notifying user through notification, and then we're gonna store the image, and then lastly we're just gonna go ahead and return a successful response to the user. So that's essentially what we end up doing in this store function. Now, let's take a look at our application again. So if we say PHP artisan native serve, let's see what it looks like. So just gonna run this and see where we get to. So here we go, gonna just quickly log in. Okay, at the moment it's just getting us back here, so let's in this case go to the native app service. Actually we need to run npm run dev, so that's what it is. There we go. So now we have this ability here. But before we store an image, we actually want to load an image as well on the front end, being able to drag and drop it and have some quality control down here as well. So we also need to look at building this quality control panel and being able to load in an image, which both are quite important as well. Just in this case, I think we want to go ahead now and take a look at our front end. So I'm gonna go back here to our dashboard. As you can see, we have this editor canvas here and the drop area context. We need a bit more here. So we have in our components got the sidebar. We need the settings, and in the settings we're gonna have a settings panel.view, which is gonna be where we store our quality control and other relevant information such as that. So down here we're gonna have a h4 with a bg background, px4, flex item center, justify between, we're gonna have a flex item center and a gap 4. Then we're gonna have a flex item center and a gap 2. Okay, so inside our script language TypeScript here, we're gonna just move that to the top. And in here we're gonna import a few things. So these are all the imports we're gonna need. We're gonna have a const props equal to define props. We're gonna have a format in here, which is gonna be webpage quality number, processing, and disable. Then we're gonna have a const emit equal to define emits, just like that. Const quality array, and it's just gonna be like this. And here we're gonna have all the quality options. And then down here, gonna have the slider, and then we're gonna have an export button. For the slider bit, we need to essentially require that as well. So in order to do that, we can go ahead and say terminal. There we go. So now we have the slider. Then inside our editor layout view, we are essentially gonna go ahead now in here, have this as the last one. We're gonna have an export, no sorry, not export bar, sorry, settings panel. We're gonna have a format. We're gonna have a quality. We're gonna have processing, and then we're gonna have all these emits here. So essentially, we need to work on these functions now to get further. This will be a shorter live stream, I'm afraid, but we will get through more next week as well, so we won't get too much done in this stream, I'm afraid. So we need to go through quite a lot on this editor class here, and it's going to take a bit to go through it. So for now, let's just hold off with these. And just have webp printed out. 80 maybe. Okay, so it doesn't really work yet. It's not really looking ideal, so we need to go back to our editor panel just for the layout. So in here, for the editor, So that will be this one. We need a resize panel group. Still doesn't appear at the bottom, but we just need to make sure we have this correctly done. So what we need to do is actually move these inside this. There we go. So now we have resizable components here. We can essentially resize the editor a bit. It works a bit nicer, a bit more controlled, but also it feels a bit more UI friendly. We can make the UI look better in the long run, of course. And we have this export one down here, which obviously isn't working because we haven't got all the functions yet to load image in and that. In the next live stream, which will be early mid next week, we will go through and be able to load in the image. We will go ahead and start processing the image and adding in the effects, and then we will probably maybe have one more live stream to put the final pieces together. Sorry this is a shorter one, but thank you very much for watching, everyone. I'll see you in the next one, and enjoy the rest of your weekend.